Hello there, Atheist Junior here, your friend and humble narrator, and I'm so excited to introduce you guys to a new stream that we're doing. So I finally we've gotten the band back together. We have the Three Musketeers, the Miami Heat of creationist debating, the 96 Bulls of debating evolution on YouTube. Me and we have Grayson from his channel is Critical Base Theory, and Mark Reed. How are you guys doing? Just take a second to talk about your channels for anybody in my audience who doesn't know or isn't familiar with you guys. Grayson, why don't you go first?
Yeah, go Grayson.
Sure, yeah. I'm Grayson. My channel is Based Theory. You guys probably know me. I mean, I do a lot of debates against pseudoscience, from young Earth creationists to flat earthers. I just uploaded my little debate interaction that I had with famous flat earther Witsit on my channel today. And yeah, I do videos about science, evolution, the Big Bang, all that stuff. We have fun debunking these silly pseudoscientific nonsense claims like we're gonna see tonight, probably, I think. And yeah, I visited Kent Hovind's Dinosaur Adventureland, and you know, tonight we're gonna be watching a video from his son. And yeah, Kent Hovind, he has some choice words about his son that I'll share when we get there. So it's pretty fun.
And my name's Mark Reed. My channel's Mark Reed Atheism. I ask big questions, and I may not give answers, but I give what I can, and I have some fun over there, making fun of some fundamentalists who sort of have no sense of self-awareness. I love that. And I do debates. So my focus is on basically being in debates, presenting arguments. I consider myself a counter-apologist, an upcoming counter-apologist, and I love to review debates and pick them apart and see who's got good arguments, what makes a good argument, what makes something worthy of being believed. So that's epistemology. Why do we believe what we believe? Is it justified that we believe what we believe? And that's what I do. So yeah, I love it. And yeah, it's really great to be here. Thanks so much, AJ and Grayson. Always a pleasure to see you. Always a pleasure. And yeah, I love being on AJ's channel because it's always so much fun. So thanks, AJ. It's awesome. I'm glad you roped me into this. Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time, both of you. And if it's all right with the panel, I'm gonna read the description of this video, and then I'll hit play if that sounds amenable to the group.
Okay, let me brace myself, because this is going to be, I haven't seen any of this in advance. I'm going to give an unfiltered reaction, which is, you know, may or may not include a lot of wincing and gnashing of teeth. So yeah, be prepared for that.
So the title is Behind Closed Books: Sexual Holocaust in Our Schools.
I'll clarify that I have seen this video, and after I watched it, I had to go get a medical diagnosis for the chronic pain that developed behind my eyelids and in my ear canals. So I'm still recovering. So hopefully I can make it through this tonight.
Indeed. Okay. And it says, over the last year, parents have been shocked at what is being allowed into their children's public schools. Everything from pornographic reading material to children's stories about kids exploring each other's bodies. How did this happen? What are parents doing? And what should you do about what is happening behind closed books? So join Eric Hovind and Bridget Heat for a frank but necessary conversation that'll help you discern the times in which we are living.
Did you hear in Florida a dictionary got banned for having like a term in it that was deemed unsuitable for kids? No. A dictionary. Like, I'm not even joking. They banned a dictionary because one of the terms in it was, you know, kids couldn't read about. What are you doing?
Wow.
Seriously.
All of those kids that are reading the dictionary are
exposed.
Well,
have you considered locking all the dictionary away?
All right. Well, let's get started.
And is starting in elementary and in middle school. They lead to a higher risk of STDs. They lead to a higher risk of emotional problems. They lead to a higher risk of relational problems as well. And yet it's being pushed because of this concept that Alfred Kinsey even pushed, that kids are sexual from birth. Don't think that this isn't affecting your kids or your neighbor's kids or your family in some way, or even the kids at your church. This is happening all across the US. It's being geared towards even homeschooling families. These books are available in libraries. So this is something that's really important for everybody to be aware of.
Welcome to the Creation Today show.
Wait, is she saying that sex ed is making kids like it's causing problems?
That is the argument, yes.
It's destroying relationships? No, it's not. What are they talking about?
And I just want to make the point that if I'm going to be worried about anything sexual happening to kids at their church, it's definitely not going to be from learning sex ed, if you know what I mean.
Right?
Yeah,
Where we bring together interviews with experts and solid Bible teaching. Your host, Eric Hovind, affirms the ultimate authority of God's Word, the truth of creation, and why it matters to you.
Why is there an agenda in public schools to groom children for sexual activity starting in kindergarten? If you're not aware of what's happening in your local public schools, this show is for you. However, this show is not for your children. I need to make that clear right up front. I think this might be, unfortunately, well, fortunately and unfortunately, my very first R-rated program here on Creation Today. And honestly, it's not because I want it to be. I mean, I want to be ignorant, honestly.
Mission accomplished. He did it, everybody.
Yeah. And sort of, so I'm just looking at some research, and sort of it sexual education has demonstrably proved that there is improvements in knowledge and attitudes related to healthy relationships.
Oh,
so
Mark, just wait until they bring their expert on, and she's gonna educate you because she's an expert in sex ed, being that she has a degree in the philosophy of apologetics. So just wait. I mean, they're bringing on an expert. She'll answer all your questions about the kind of evil that sex ed has wrought on our society.
I'm just saying those statements that they made about the detriment, those are blatant lies. They're blatant lies.
No, it's gonna get worse, buddy. Strap in.
Oh, okay. All right.
I just love that Eric Hovind starts it off by saying, "I want to be ignorant." I'm like,
yeah.
Well, he's an inspiration that if we just follow our dreams, we can accomplish them.
Why would you ever? Yeah. Oh, just wishing to be ignorant. I wish I was ignorant of him and all Hovinds everywhere, quite frankly.
And just remember going forward that he said starting in kindergarten. So keep that in your short-term memory.
No one's saying that.
Well, no, they already said that. Alfred Kinsey said that kids are sexual from birth. We got sexual babies coming out.
But nobody in the education system is promoting sex ed.
No, of course not.
Yeah.
These people think that they're sexualizing infants.
This is sort of the satanic panic or the rainbow scare, basically, just on sex ed. It's what are you doing?
Ignorant of some of the things that I have had to learn. However, duty to God demands that I be informed about this world that I live in. Now, I know a lot of you probably feel the same way I do. I want to be ignorant of the content in the movie Sound of Freedom. I don't want to think about little boys and little girls being exploited, being raped, and being abused.
Wait.
But ignorance.
Wait. Eric, if you're listening, you do not have to think about little boys and girls being exploited and raped and abused. No one's making you think about those things.
Isn't Sound of Freedom a movie?
Yes, Sound of Freedom was a movie that came out last summer that blew up. It was a really, really boring movie, honestly. I mean, I wish that they had gone even more QAnon with it, but no, they just it's like about child trafficking, and everyone's like, "Oh, this is so real. This stuff is really happening." Oh, and
look, I'm not going to say that child trafficking is a myth. It probably is some sort of thing happening, but that is completely unrelated to the education system teaching sex ed to kids. Like, what's the segue? That's a complete non sequitur. Oh, because I watched a movie, this thing is happening. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, and in the movie, they trace the kids back to a drug lord in like Colombia or something, and that's
Oh,
who's been trafficking the children. So it's like a yeah, and it blew up in the right wing, and I guess it makes Eric
Oh.
Hovind just constantly think about children being sexually exploited because he thinks that that's his duty to God. So
It's one of those movies. I see. Well, I would just like to thank Rowan for the super chat. It says, thanks for calling these assholes out. Cheers. And I would just say you're welcome. I enjoy it. So, but I would say to Eric Hovind, I think, just because you ignore these things doesn't mean they're not happening. I mean, we would all like to not think about the less savory things in life, but,
right.
I would say it's almost worse to misrepresent the causes of these things. That's worse to lie about it, which you're doing right now, saying that sex ed is what's causing this, because it's not.
And can I also point out that that's Rowan's 10th super on a live stream? That's awesome. Thanks so much,
wow.
Rowan. That's
Thank you.
cool.
All right, we're gonna continue.
Doesn't help me be the man that God has called me to be. I want to be ignorant of what actually happened on October 7th when Hamas attacked Israel and videotaped themselves getting pleasure out of mutilating women still alive and videotaping their excitement over the slaughter of hundreds of people. But duty to God demands that I face.
That's got to be called out, because like that there aren't videos of that. Eric Hovind has not seen those videos. Like, he's just lying about that because he heard about that stuff, but he's saying that he wishes he's ignorant about it. Like, Eric, you are ignorant about those things because those were rumors and gossip that were spreading around. There's no like I've yet to see any hard evidence or any videos of the things that he just accused from October 7th, which is like, why are you even bringing up October 7th in a video about like this subject, about sex ed in school?
Yeah, it's got no relation whatsoever. He's just trying to conflate everything bad that
Yeah.
happens to children with what happens in school for sex education. Bad things happen to children over here, so think of sex education as those bad things that happen over here. Also, you know, where's your outrage about, you know, the little girl killed in Gaza, and the ambulance blown up on the way to rescue her? You know, where's your outrage about that one? Like, I'm not saying, like, both sides are doing bad things. Like, it is a war. That doesn't mean that sex education is a bad thing over in America. Like, one thing has absolutely no relation to the other. Like, literally zero relation, except kids are involved. That's it.
Like,
that's all.
What made him talk about, like, the subject was supposed to be sex ed in schools for children, and he starts by talking about October 7th and the Sound of Freedom movie, and then doesn't ever, I don't think not one single time in this entire video does he ever bring out the fact that child abuse is rampant in churches in the US in his own backyard, not halfway across the world in a war zone, but like in his own backyard. Children are being abused like daily from like authoritative like people in churches. That's never ever going to be mentioned in this entire video.
In his own family, if you really want to get into it. I mean, he's linked to Jim, he's linked to the Duggars, and we all know about what Kent has gotten into. But really quickly, because I don't want to harp on the thing about Israel, but why I forget the date he said, October 2nd. Why are you picking that date and not a date far earlier of all the stuff Israel had done before that? Why are we picking this date and saying this one is bad?
It was because that was the attack that Hamas did against the settlements. So that was the day that they sort of attacked civilians, kind of thing, which I don't agree with. I don't think civilians should be attacked. But it's a complex situation, and you know, sort of just pointing out what one side in this, basically what has been a Cold War and a sort of situation of apartheid, you know, is sort of so narrowly, you know, we have to talk about, you know, all of the problems in Israel and Gaza, and you know, the problems between Hamas and the IDF and Israel. You know, to just point out, hey, Hamas did this bad thing. so sex education is bad is one of the stupidest arguments I've ever heard in my entire life. Like, it is, what are you talking about?
Well, it's just guilt by association. They do the same thing with evolution. But yeah, let's
Sure.
keep going.
Yeah.
It's the reality of the world I live in. Now, I know a lot of you want to be just like Spike in The Land Before Time. All you want to do is just put your head in the sand and pretend these things aren't happening. Well, that didn't end up working out for Spike, and it's not going to work out for you either. You and I need to be informed. We need to do what we can to protect our children and encourage others to live their lives for the glory of God rather than the pleasures of sin. If you are new to the Creation Today show, I'm your host, Eric Hovind. Watch what happened to this father when he went to his local school board and began reading the literature that the school board approved for curriculum in the public school during the school board meeting. Check this out.
And then we can discuss, you can discuss the process by which these books get on the shelves, because there's a Clay County employee that got paid to put this book, Lucky, by Alice Sebold. I'm going to read things. If there's children watching, cover their ears. He began to need
I'm going to
his fist
stop you
against-
right there, sir. I'm going to stop you right there.
Turn the microphone off.
Turn off his microphone, please.
Really quickly, I just want to point out that this story is a memoir written by a girl named Alice, who talks about her experience when she was 18 and she was brutally raped and beaten on her college campus. Just wanted to give that context.
Yeah, like, he spent all this time talking about, like, the pleasures of sin, and we need to get the pleasures of sin out of the schools and everything. Like, this book is nothing about giving in to sin. It's like about a woman who was freaking assaulted. Like, what? Like, how is he trying to use this as an example of them trying to push sexuality in schools?
I've told you I'm stopping you. The reason I'm stopping you is because these meetings are, if you'll hush your mouth for a minute and listen instead of just talking, you may learn something.
schools.
Owned. I just want to say, you got him.
And our children, you should be able to listen to them.
Well, the problem is, sir, is these meetings are broadcast.
These meetings are broadcast. It's not okay for
Why didn't
broadcast,
he
but it's okay
continue
to
with the
put
rest of
into
it?
the minds and the hearts of.
Well, they were cutting him off. It's because he was reading an explicit part of the book into the microphone to try and say, this is what they're letting our kids read in school. But Eric Hovind doesn't give the context of what it actually is. And of course, it's going to be hard to listen to. And it's inappropriate for him to be reading that, but not because they're like hiding. They want to hide what is actually being taught in the schools.
I don't think you're allowed to go to a town hall meeting or something and just read literature into the microphone kind of thing. I think the statement is supposed to be your opinion on the matter rather than reading stuff out. I don't think that's really appropriate anyway. You know, I mean, it's not like you can go to a town hall and read Lord of the Rings to them kind of thing and go, well, that's why I support, logging things because, or that's why I support, conservation because the Ents could destroy us. Like they just won't allow that. It's just not the forum for reading your favorite book or your least favorite book. Any book, really. Give your opinion on the matter and why you support or don't support it. That's what you're supposed to do. Like, I get that he was trying to make a point, but you're right. It doesn't show the context of that passage. And I might add, I'm sure that they'll allow the Bible, and Songs has basically, softcore porn in there. I'm not even joking.
True. That's a good point.
Songs is basically a poetry, like erotic poetry to a woman. Hang on a sec. How beautiful you are, my darling. How beautiful your eyes are.
Mark, this is being broadcast.
I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. This is being broadcast live. We can't say stuff like that. That's the Bible. So do we ban the Bible? Of course not, because it's the Bible, right? It's the special book.
Yeah.
Children in the public education system. My guest today works with the Feed My Sheep Foundation, has been researching the harmful physical, emotional, social, and spiritual effects of anything goes sexuality. She is currently focused on helping parents, churches,
just say
and
something?
communities.
How do you research the spiritual effects?
Well, did you see that in their list of faculty at this Feed My Sheep Foundation, they had John Sanford, the inventor of the gene gun. So,
How
seems
does
like
he investigate the effects on spirituality of, like, you can investigate the effects on the psychology of people, sure. How do we investigate the effects on spirituality exactly?
I don't know. We'll have to get a Christian in here.
with
I would like a methodology for that one.
with your heart, Mark.
Right. Yeah. Sorry, I forgot.
Can I just say that really bothers me? That language of people always talking about, I knew it in my heart. Like, no, you didn't. Your heart is an organ. You like you don't have brain. You have brain waves. You don't know anything in your heart. It just annoys me. All right.
Become aware of the changes in sexual education and gender policy that will affect our schools and our communities. She's a member of the Protect Child Health Coalition and a homeschooling mom of 2. She uses her master's degree in psychological apologetics
Pause
to
it.
help people.
You see, he just said her degrees in psychological apologetics, and like on screen, it even says philosophical apologetics. Like he can't even get her. He can't even get her field correct.
Wow.
Yeah.
She's not a psychologist. She's not got any kind of psychology degree. She has a master's in apologetics, basically the practicalities of philosophy and theology. Like wow.
She's got a great smile, though.
This is not the right person to be, sort of analyzing anything. And if she could present her methodology for how she investigates the spiritual effect, that would be great.
Yes.
Oh, since graduating college, she's had her own photography business. Well, that would make her, perfectly suited to investigate it, right?
Well, I mean, she's very photogenic, clearly, but I don't know if that makes her qualified. Yeah, let's keep going.
Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Mrs. Bridget Heap. Bridget, welcome to the Creation Today show.
Hi, Eric. Thank you so much for having me on.
I'm sorry, Bridget Heap from Feed My Sheep. I just had to point that out.
I appreciate this opportunity.
Well, tough topic today. You've been researching and presenting this material for several years now. So just in case my warning at the beginning wasn't sufficient, who should not be watching this conversation and why, before we get started here?
So definitely, personally, I think anybody 18 and under shouldn't really be watching this. That being said, though, if there are parents that think that their older teens know what's going on and they should be exposed to those, that's something that a parent should consider. But I think today what we're going to talk about is,
for everybody watching the stream right now, make sure that you have your parents' permission to continue watching the stream. I just want to make that clear.
All right, I gotta go. See you guys.
Parent or guardian,
real quick.
Yeah, I'll have to ask the wife. I need her permission to look at other women. Big shout out, Nameless School. Go for it, AJ.
Yeah, thank you, Nameless School for the memberships.
I want to thank Nameless School because I was hit by that. It's Left-Handed Jedi, Mark Reed, Justin Knight Theo, Savage Perpetual Motion Lungs Cobra. Wow, what a name. Ian Thomas and Eric F. Winner.
You got one?
Winner.
You got one?
I got one. Yeah.
Awesome.
Hit me. Good shot.
That means you can use emojis in the chat now. You can use special chat emojis among other benefits. All right, let's keep going.
Is definitely explicit, sexually explicit. It's graphic material. We're probably going to use words that make people shudder a little bit. Honestly, it's not easy to talk about these topics. I think that it's important to do so because if we're burying our heads in the sand and keeping a blind eye to this, the children are getting the brunt of this. They are being exposed to it, and then we're just blind and we don't know what's happening. So I think it's important that we cover these topics, as difficult as they are.
Well, with that warning, we will move ahead and assume that you are okay watching this as we move through what is actually happening today in our public education system, what books they're trying to get in there and why. Bridget, get us up to speed. What's happening? What's going on? Kind of give us the overview of what's happening and get us up to speed on what's taking place.
Sure. So I do have a couple of examples just to show folks about where kids are hearing this information and where they're getting it from. So this first example is actually a curriculum that is put out by Planned Parenthood. So some people might not know that some school districts actually bring in other organizations to teach sex education to their kids. And Planned Parenthood is a very popular choice. They have been using this curriculum, Be Proud, Be Responsible, in schools just all over the US. And I just want to share a few examples. So from this curriculum, children are being taught that people often say that sex doesn't feel as good with a condom, but we're going to talk about ways to make the experience more pleasurable. So on the outset here, it's pretty obvious that what is being taught to our children is that public education space, that space in the classroom that is co-ed, is perfectly fine as a place to talk about sexual pleasure and, in fact, ways to increase or to experience more sexual pleasure.
No, that's not what they're saying. They're saying, hey, because the condom makes the area less sensitive because you have a layer, here's how to make it more pleasurable so that you should wear a condom. Because a lot of the objections to I don't want to wear a condom is sort of, well, I it's not as pleasurable if I wear one. No, wear one, and then we're going to teach you how to make it more pleasurable because that will encourage them to wear a condom. That's all.
Yeah, they're trying to educate people to use protection, and she's trying to make that out like it's a bad thing. It's like that only leads to positive outcomes. And she's like, did you just say that sex is pleasurable? How dare you teach my children about this?
Let me clutch my pearls. And I love how they're like saying, oh, but Planned Parenthood did it, Planned Parenthood. You know that Planned Parenthood does more than just abortions. They do all kinds of things like, give out protection and do things
mammograms.
Like pill and right. They do all kinds of things. They're not the boogeyman that you think they are.
Yeah, and this is a good thing because this is a pragmatic solution. I mean, I think I think Planned Parenthood isn't entirely qualified to make this type of material, and they're being pragmatic because it's better than just saying, "Oh, you better use one or else you'll get pregnant and die." No, let's analyze the major complaint. I would probably think the number one complaint against this type of safe sex is that reason, and okay, well, let's approach this from that angle. And I think it's smart to do it that way.
Yeah, maybe teaching teenagers things that reduces the rate of teenage pregnancy is a good thing for society. I don't know. Whoa.
Yeah. Also, keep in your mind that they listen for them to mention what grade this stuff is being taught in, because they never do. Just keep that in your mind.
So I think right there at the beginning, that would probably shock a few people, that they would think, wow, they're actually teaching kids this. But going further then, this curriculum is also teaching children that touching and stroking each other all over can be very pleasurable. People are better lovers and know about their own bodies and a partner's body. So right there is this standard or this expectation that children are being taught that you need to know how to pleasure yourself. You need to know how to pleasure others. And so again, these things are being taught, alongside reproductive information and information about STDs, but that's not the focus of comprehensive sex education anymore. The focus is on the rights of children to engage in sexual pleasure. And so that's what you're going to start to see is creeping into the schools here. And in some schools, it's full blown in these schools already.
No. Hold on. Yeah, they're not saying you have to learn to do this. They're saying that this is perfectly normal and here's how to do it if you want to. They're not pushing this on them. They're just saying, hey, if you want to have sex, it will make you a better lover by knowing how to please your partner. it's kind of just, they're gonna have sex anyway if they're gonna have
Right.
sex. That's what we've had to come to terms with. And somebody, who was it? I think it was Left-Handed Jedi, pointed out rightly in the comments that, no, it was Vic. Vic pointed out in the comments that the rate of abortion is highest in states that they teach abstinence only. Like, teaching abstinence doesn't prevent, teenagers from having sex. It just freaking doesn't. So how do we then get them to understand the process and understand what happens, and to have a healthy relationship with people? And so part of that is knowing about sex.
Yeah, you can just tell that these two individuals here are like so sexually repressed. It's like, it's just sad.
I think they should hook up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head, Mark, when you say that this is inevitable, because when kids are going through puberty, this is what happens. You have hormones raging. And notice that my question to her would be, how are you defining children? Because she keeps saying this is taught to children, but they never say what grade this curriculum is taught in.
AJ, they are. And it's she is explicitly trying not to say what age. And Eric Hovind actually ruins her little parade later on in this by asking her, what age are we talking again? And she's like, I mean, high school, but I mean, this has elementary school sometimes too, like,
no, it
she's
isn't.
Trying,
No.
She's trying very explicitly to try to make this, to paint this picture in the listener's head that these are little children, these are kids, these are elementary school kids. But she's choosing her language very deliberately, because she's talking about high school curriculum, but she's trying to paint the picture like this is for little boys and girls, your little baby girl, your baby boy. Like, she's trying that on purpose.
No, usually in Australia it's about, I think it's about 14, 15, about the time that you get sex ed. And about that time is when you're starting to feel, the feelings of attraction towards whoever you're attracted to, and you don't understand it, and it's very, very confusing. And I'm sure it's confusing for everybody that goes through it. But just to sort of go, oh, well, don't tell them about that, and just, prevent them from knowing what's going on, that doesn't help. We know it doesn't help. Statistically, you have, not teaching sex ed doesn't create any more teenagers having sex. They're going to anyway. Mm-hmm. It's just, how do we protect them against the negative consequences on their lives of that actually happening? That's the question.
It's basically damage control.
Yeah.
This last example from this curriculum says the goal of this role play is for Lee to convince Jaden to use a condom, and that condoms can be fun and pleasurable. Now, in this specific curriculum, there's actually a note that says teachers are instructed to require all students to participate in role plays, even if they feel uncomfortable doing so. And that should shock a ton of parents, because even if they might feel comfortable exposing their children to certain topics, the schools are essentially pushing this idea that teachers can push kids past that level of comfortability that they have in order to get them practicing having these sexual conversations with each other.
Okay, here's why this is a good thing. So these students, they're peers of each other. So they're in the same age group. It's very likely that some of the kids in this class could end up actually having sex. So that conversation, for the first time, these conversations are going to be awkward. So the idea is you get these conversations out of the way, which they know it's going to be uncomfortable. But the point is that they have some practice. And just imagine a scenario where that does happen, where two partners from this class actually end up hooking up. That would make that conversation much easier the second time, I would think.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you want to encourage them to have those conversations with their parents as well. So sort of to have the conversation of, when is it right for me to start having sex? And is it something that, you should hold off on? But the problem is that they don't have these conversations with their children. So that they will go into life with absolutely no idea what's going on. And, I don't know, I might be describing you guys because I got a sex education kind of thing. But there's a lot of children that just don't know, like they'll see a period as something, just evil, and it don't understand what it is, and it's like it's just a period, guys, relax, it's fine, like it's just a monthly thing that happens to a woman, like just it's fine. She's bleeding. Yeah, that's what happens.
Yeah, Mark is rightly pointing out that since myself and AJ both went through Texas public schools, which have been heavily lobbied by people just like this, that we basically didn't have sex ed. I had a little bit where they talked about STDs in health class in sophomore year of high school, but yeah, I mean, mostly I was doing my own research. It was like, because nobody wants to be bad, and so you go and you have to do research on your own to learn, or through experience, whatever. But it's not ideal, and a lot of people are probably not going to do their own research, and they're just going to be bad or making stupid decisions that could potentially ruin their lives. I mean, it's you want to be informed about this stuff.
Or they talk to their friends and get a whole bunch of misinformation, like, oh, you can't get pregnant standing up kind of thing.
Yeah.
They get all this misinformation that doesn't actually work.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. Like, when you're just getting information from wherever you can find it, that's the way to get misinformation.
Oh, sorry, Mark.
Oh, that's okay. I'm just saying that the curriculum is there to provide what we know is the correct information. So, we can say, hey, this is actually the reality of the situation, and get them informed, because they're going to find out about sex anyway. The question is, do they find out about it, like through Grayson says, their own research and talking with their friends and, all of that? Or do you want them to find out from an authority that actually has the correct information?
Yeah. I mean, these kids are going to have access to the internet anyway. They're going to be curious. They're going to be Googling stuff, and they could learn some really damaging sexual behaviors from porn and things. So, yeah. And I just wanted to, when you were talking about being informed about this stuff and being, swayed by disinformation or ignorance, it just reminded me of, I was telling you guys this about before the stream too, but I recently heard this woman that went to a private Catholic school, and when she was really young, when she had her first period, when it stopped, she had thought that the period was just going to continue for the rest of her life. And when it stopped, she thought that she had missed her period and had become pregnant. And she thought back, and the only interaction she'd had was when her dog licked her face, and she thought that she had been impregnated by her dog. And she spent a week thinking that she was pregnant with some sort of horrible dog-man hybrid creature. And because this is what happens when you're not informed about sex ed, and your body is going through the changes anyway, and you don't know what's happening because you haven't been educated, because people like this have tried to keep you in the dark about it.
Right. Yeah. So Grayson went to public high school in Texas. I spent half of my high school years at an all-boys military school. So I guess they just thought there's no girls here, so they don't need to know. And yeah, I could tell you some stories about the borderline gay shit that went on at that school, but that's for another time.
Doesn't surprise
Remind
me.
me what age group this is taught to?
So comprehensive sex education is actually going to start from.
I just love the panic in her eyes. She looks like a deer caught in headlights when Eric Hovind, he has no idea what he's doing. He doesn't know what her game is with this at all. And he just innocently asks, because he thinks it's going to be some big, they're teaching this to 6-year-olds kind of moment. So, but he's just he utterly ruins her whole thing that she's trying to do here by asking, remind me, what age is this being taught to children? Can you go back 7 seconds or whatever, AJ, or is that going to ruin the whole thing?
Sexual conversations with each other.
Remind me what age group this is taught to?
So comprehensive sex education is actually going to start from kindergarten to 12th grade, and you're going to see curriculums like this start to creep in middle school up into the high school ages. So this one, I think the 3 examples here were for high school level.
There it is.
But what you're going to see in just a little bit, if we have time to get to some of these examples, is that the explicit sexual content is starting in elementary and in.
If we have time. I didn't bring the examples from kindergarten, even though it starts there. She like contradicted herself.
Yeah.
It starts there, but it creeps in middle school. But my examples were from high school.
Yeah,
Yep.
she cannot show examples from kindergarten. She just says, "Oh, it definitely starts in kindergarten, but all my examples are from a high school class, and they're all just trying to get kids to wear condoms." Like, these are the best 3 examples that she could come up with. These are her first examples of this sexual holocaust, and it's like literally telling high schoolers, "Hey, condoms don't suck, you guys. Please use condoms." Like,
do we count this as a violation of Godwin's law, the sexual holocaust thing?
yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Pretty much. All right.
Yeah.
Middle school.
Okay, so some people might be watching and some people might not have a moral to say, well, what is right and what is wrong? And I've often thought, if you don't know what's right, you won't know what's wrong. And so there may be some parents going, well, they've got to learn about this somewhere. How do you address like that concept of what should and should not be taught? Because I'm under the impression that, hey, that responsibility is the parents. That's not the government school's responsibility. But how do you think do that? And how do you address that with parents?
So I think that in the society that we're living in today, it's incredibly important for that parent to make the decision, am I going to be teaching my kids these things, or am I going to be sending them to the public school? And in both cases, the parents really need to review the information. They need to know ahead of time, what topics are you teaching my child? What graphics are you going to be showing them? What handouts are you going to be sending home with them? And even as a homeschool parent, I'm a homeschool parent. I homeschool my kids. There's information out there that's even geared towards people educating their kids at home that if you're not aware of it, you're going to have that slip in. So let me actually show you my next example.
Oh God, yeah, like pictures, anatomy pictures are just, don't be showing the kids anatomy. It's I'd hate to see her with a child who's a medical student. No, did you just show her a penis? Well, yeah, it's an anatomy drawing. What do you expect? I didn't see there's no explicit pictures. What you get is sort of the medical diagrams, the anatomy diagrams, of where the urethra is, where the testicles are, kind of thing. It's not something you'd look at and go, oh, check out the urethra on that guy. That's not what's happening here. Come on now, it's really silly. We've got to be able to talk about things like anatomy and sex and relationships in an adult way. And the sooner you start treating your child like a mature adult, the sooner they will be a mature adult. You can't just go, no, you don't learn about that. And plus, even the whole idea of homeschool your kids, give them sex ed at home and stop the government from doing it. The problem is that you're talking about religious people who didn't get sex ed either. So they have misconceptions about it as well. They're like, oh no, it shouldn't be pleasurable. It's just something you're doing. It's these cyclical sort of, rotating things that the parents don't learn anything. They teach the kids what they know and they don't know anything. So the kids don't know anything. And then the next generation comes along and they get taught, sort of that kind of thing. So it's just, I don't think homeschooling is an answer for as far as sex ed is concerned.
She's basically like, roll the dice, whatever parents you get, those are the parents that should teach you about sex ed. Maybe not all parents are the best equipped to teach their kid about sex ed. Maybe some parents like the girl that thought that she was pregnant with a dog hybrid, maybe those parents just avoided having that conversation and did some harm by not teaching their kid. Maybe not all parents are going to be the best people to teach their kids sex ed, and some of them aren't even going to bring the subject up at all. And I also think it's hilarious here that her first example is a YouTube video. She's about to show a freaking YouTube video. Are you serious?
Is that in the curriculum? Or is that just a YouTube video?
She's saying that it's marketed, the YouTube video is marketed towards homeschooled kids. Hey, show these kids that you're homeschooling this YouTube video. But it's this is not official curriculum. This is
right.
I mean, come on.
Yeah, and I would actually agree with her at this point that I think it is fair to say that parents, if they want to, should be able to review this material before the children do. I don't have a problem with that, but she's going to twist it in a way that makes it sound sinister. And I was going to say, are you saying that not all parents are well equipped to or want to talk about this stuff? I was going to say, well, some people who have kids are asexual, but then I was like, is that stupid or is that actually true? Because they could become that way after they have the kids, right? I mean, I'm just saying.
And Tubian brings up a good point in the comments here that like I know this was also the case for me, but like most of like the sexual things I learned as a kid were like from other kids, like during recess or something. Like you're gonna have one kid that has parents that are just gonna be like saying that stuff in front of them, and then they're gonna tell all their friends, and it's gonna spread through the school just from kids gossiping with one another. Like that's just gonna happen. That happens at really ultra strict religious schools. That happens at public schools, like military schools. That's just kids, man.
Mm-hmm. Also, kids have older siblings. They don't just hear about this stuff from their parents.
Yeah.
All right.
Exactly.
Let's keep going.
This amaze.org is a website that schools will promote to children as just extra resources for them. And they also have a big push to encourage homeschooling families to watch these videos as well as, okay, you're educating your kids at home, let's help you out. And here are some videos for you. So just really quick, here are 3 videos that they have. These are completely accessible to children. They are often watching these without their parents having pre-watched them. And so this video is called Abortion with Pills, What Is It? And it teaches children that self-managed abortions are safe, effective, and normal. The next video is called Accessing Sexual...
Hang on, are they talking about the morning after pill? Like Plan B?
It sounds like it, but we don't get to see any of the video.
Yeah, but that's not an abortion.
No, it's not.
That's not an abortion.
It's probably not the title of the video either.
Well, they believe that life begins at conception. I don't know.
You could find the second video, but they don't show that unless you search for the title that she said. If that really is the title of the video, I kind of doubt it. But yeah. And Grayson, I think if you still have those graphs open that show about teen pregnancy, we should show those in a second.
Yeah,
well, healthcare for minors, and it teaches minors specific questions to ask healthcare providers to make sure that their parents are not involved.
Yeah, so this is a map of repeat teen pregnancy rates by state. You might see a pattern begin to emerge here with this data.
Yeah, and it's not teen pregnancy, it's repeat teen pregnancy. So this is second or third time they've gotten pregnant.
It's almost like the more deeply religiously infiltrated a state government is, and the more that they're changing their curriculum to take things like sex ed out of the curriculum because of these crazy Puritan religious zealots, it's almost like that's having really bad outcomes for people because it increases the rate of teen pregnancy and child abuse. Who would have thought?
Yeah, I gotta say, I'm surprised at Florida. I'm impressed, actually.
I'm actually checking out this website. It's very good. It's got stuff like, also, it's not just sort of sex ed as well. It's like, what is bullying, self-harm and cutting, like sex trafficking, what is it? So they're even addressing, the thing that they say they're so concerned about, to try and educate kids on how they could be lured into something like this, which is, isn't that what we want to sort of tell them how to avoid this?
An abortion or condom.
It's got things like, how to know if you're in a toxic relationship or an abusive relationship kind of thing.
Wow.
Like things that are really necessary, so when you're a young person and you get into a relationship, you may think and be gaslighted and think it's normal that he, abuses you or smacks you or body slams you, for instance. That's not normal, and kids should be taught, hey, that isn't something that you should expect to happen. And if he does it, here's what you can do and where to get support from, which is really, necessary. How to deal with some of these things happening. If SA, for instance, like where to get help for it, kind of thing. Because I hate to break it to you, but being in a Bible Belt doesn't stop this stuff. It doesn't. It doesn't.
It makes it worse.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So even for the parents out there that may be thinking, well, I do want my child exposed to some of this information, what they're not realizing is a lot of these organizations are intentionally trying to drive a wedge between the parent and the child, because the expectation is that, well, these kids they're just basically mini adults and they have rights to all of this stuff and nobody should be standing in their way. Now, this one last video.
Children shouldn't have rights.
Well, look, they are adolescents, which is the stage in between child and adult. They are like literally becoming adults. Like to say, oh, well, they're not mini adults, they're still children. No, they're adolescents. That you have to let them grow up. You can't keep them a child their entire life.
She keeps saying children. Sorry to interrupt you, Mark, but notice how she keeps saying the word children. But she just said earlier that her examples were from high schoolers. And I think it would be accurate to say you could call a high schooler a mini adult. I mean, they're called young adults.
Yeah, sure. And they're going to become adults and they're going to have questions. And we have to address that, not just sort of, but it's funny where he says, oh, you can bury your head in the sand. That's exactly what you people are doing. You've got all of these problems with teen pregnancy, STDs, the sexual relations between people and SA and things like that. You can bury your head in the sand, or we can actually take some steps to do something about it through education. But you would rather bury your head in the sand and pretend like it's not happening and doesn't exist.
Grayson, got anything to add?
I believe that the technical term is tweens.
Tweens,
Well, high school tweens are tweens
between, are 20s, aren't they?
Tweens are 11 and 12-year-olds. They're in between child and teenager. So
yeah, it's a bit older than that.
Well, okay,
so
you put me on the spot, AJ. I didn't have anything to say, so I made a joke. Okay, play the video.
Okay. Thank you to Ian. Thank you to Ian Chen and I forgot to read. I forgot to thank you for your first super chat. So thank you, Ian, for the $7.99 Australian super chat.
From amaze.org is called Am I Ready to Have Sex? And it teaches children that only you know when you're ready to have sex. That's called agency, teaching a child that
they are not showing unicorns humping on this.
That's just a blatant lie. That's just a blatant lie.
I just saw that. I was looking at the chat. It is realistic. The caption.
That they will decide at any age what kind of activities and with whom they're interested in having sex. That's called agency. And then this video asks them questions like, do I actually know anyone I would like to have sex with? And then they encourage the children to talk to a trusted adult about their sexual desires. So remember, these videos are being promoted at the public schools as extra resources for the kids, to homeschooling families as well. So definitely as a parent, whether you're deciding to put your kid in a public school or even a private school or to educate them at home, I think the best thing that you can do is you have to pre-read, pre-watch any of the information that you're going to give to your child. And in a lot of ways, that sounds exhausting, but at this point, I think that that's really important to be doing that.
Okay, so
you know what?
I just imagined like parents just like pre-watching episodes of Skibidi Toilet before their kids watch them. And
right.
I just think that's a hilarious mental image.
Oh, look, I don't want to mean to her. I mean, you're an idiot and you don't know what you're talking about pretending to be an expert. It's crazy because basically they're teaching kids, hey, if they have sexual feelings, talk to a trusted adult about what that means and what they're supposed to do about it. That's not bad advice. That's good advice, right? instead of repressing it until later in life where you can't deal with your feelings anymore, or it bursts out in some kind of unprovoked overt sexual manner that is SA basically. So you're an idiot that doesn't know what they're talking about. But I do agree with her. I think that some of these parents should be watching sex ed videos, and maybe they'll learn something as well. You know, I find it that they're just going to go, oh, you know, it's teaching about sex and they're encouraging kids to have sex, I won't let them watch it kind of thing, which is horrendous. That's horrendous. You know, this woman is so much not an expert. What is her alternative to when a child feels a sexual feeling, or, you know, someone young, say 13, 14, right? Just an adolescent. What is her alternative to discussing that, you know, with a trusted adult? Just pray it away? I don't know.
Read
the
your
Bible, right? It's ridiculous. Like, this does not work and is unhealthy. And the fact that you're not bringing up any studies or any kind of literature to show that this is unhealthy, all you're doing is just saying, oh, look at this. They're talking about adult relations. That it just shows that you have nothing to back you up on this besides your own incredulity. That's all. That's all she's got.
Yeah, I think another big thing that we might not
Consent,
have mentioned is teaching about consent. It's very important.
Absolutely.
And I will just say to Mark Reed that you can't have sex with the Bible on your lap.
You can't.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah, watch me go. I'll do it.
It seems like what we've watched over the last couple of years is what used to be parental involvement and parental consent and parental information. People have kind of tried to go around behind parents and say, how do we do this without them knowing? For example, that second video you show. So I'm curious. It seems like that's clear that that's what's happening now. Is that what's happening? And how did we get from where we were when, I mean, I was offered sex ed in 5th grade and I had to get a parental, slip signed, and they didn't sign it. So I didn't get the sex.
Of course they didn't.
Oh my God. Can you imagine having freaking Kent Hovind as your father? And I literally cannot.
No. I don't think Eric likes it either, because he doesn't talk to his father at all.
His body language is really out there.
Yeah, that's true. He is like a wacky arm flailing inflatable tube man. But yeah, also Kent was talking mad trash about Eric while I was at Dinosaur Adventureland. Like, he was talking about how he's like, when I was in prison, I trusted my son Eric to all my money. And when I got out of prison, I learned that he had stolen it all from me. Like, and he's just like, yeah, I mean, his kid just stole all of his money and royally screwed him over. So that's Christian love, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, he bought the properties fair and square from the government, who sold them, who auctioned them off, and he used that revenue stream to support him and his mom, who Hovind abandoned.
Yeah, and there's also the question of what's Kent's money and what was the ministry's money kind of thing. There's also that question as well. So it becomes a gray area, which is exactly where Kent likes it, because he keeps talking about people stealing his money when they steal from the ministry. So I don't think, he considers the ministry's money to be, the money of the organization that he runs. He considers it to be his, which is kind of very telling for somebody running an organization that considers the organization's money to be yours. Usually I call that embezzlement, but it's a church, so it's kind of normal, so yeah. But this is, like, he's kind of saying, hey, my slip wasn't signed kind of thing. Yeah, what we kind of found out is that kids that didn't get their slip signed, they had atrocious problems with STDs, all of the things I mentioned earlier, all of the problems.
Can you just imagine what kind of actual sex education this man received from Kent Hovind? Oh my God. I mean, they were right. When she said earlier that there were going to be things in this video that just make you shudder and cringe, because, like, I'm there. Like, Eric.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Well, I made a making babies video. Did you sure watch that? And you know that a whale has a 15-foot penis?
Sex ed talk in 5th grade, my parents were like, we'll take care of that. And from talking to my friends there, it was nothing like what they're getting today. So
We have
how did we
confirmation.
get here and like talk about that shit?
Oh,
That's gotta be
having
the
the
worst.
talk, having the talk with Kent Hovind.
I
Did you know I had
he was gonna
600
have that.
girlfriends, son? Did you know I had 600 girlfriends in high school, son? Like, oh.
Yeah, AJ, do you have an impression for us about getting the sex
Yeah,
talk
come on.
open?
Well, it was actually 300, Mark. I had 300 girls in high school, 300 girlfriends, and me and my friend, we had a competition. Of course, I didn't have sex with any of them, but I taught my son Eric. Well, actually, I didn't teach him anything. I just said, read your Bible, and then I whacked him, or whack your son, whack a son.
So the biggest reason I think why we are where we are is because the comprehensive sex education curriculum, so that's this program for kids ages, kindergarten up through 12th grade, that is largely based on Alfred Kinsey's work. And I have it right here with me. So this is Sexual Behavior in the Human Male. I read through this entire book. He has several of them. But the main theme of his book is if a human being desires to engage in a particular sexual act, no matter what that is, so that could be anything from heterosexual, homosexual, bestiality, self-pleasuring, any of those things. If a human being wants to engage in that kind of activity, that's normal for them. And so what's happening now is, as our culture is looking at things like diversity, they're having to say to themselves, well, not everybody has heterosexual desires. Some people have homosexual desires. Some people have, asexual desires.
True.
And so what the schools are.
How did the asexuals get mentioned? But this is by erasure. I just wanted to say that. and as we're on the topic, my inner homosexual has to come out and say, get this woman some dry shampoo or some hairspray. Seriously. I just had to say that. I couldn't, because it's been bothering me this whole video.
Yeah,
but I'm surprised she mentioned asexual people, actually.
This thing with Kinsey, like, she's just totally like, okay, like Kinsey had a large impact on American sexology in the 50s.
Yes.
But like current sexology and all of the actual science that's informing how sex ed is taught and the kinds of societal impacts that has is like so far beyond like freaking Alfred Kinsey's just some guy in the 50s. Right. Like, and sexology has been a science for like hundreds of years, like way before Alfred Kinsey either. Like he might have like popularized it as a science in the US, but like this is not a US based thing. Like she just is like completely off basis. And she even is saying that he's trying to claim that like children are sexual from birth. She's trying to be like so ambiguous with that language that it just makes the viewer think of like, oh my God, sexual babies from birth. Oh my, and she's like completely divorcing that from like any semblance of context, which, like, by the way, like nobody in the current sexology literature thinks that babies are sexual. Like that is just a blatant lie.
So Time did an article and the lead article concluded, and this is accurate to what they think, Kinsey has done for sex what Columbus did for geography. So declared a pair of enthusiasts, forgetting that Columbus did not know where he was when he got there. Kinsey's work contains much that is valuable, but must not be mistaken for the last word. So basically they're saying, hey, he did some work on it, and some of which is valuable, and some of which he was completely wrong about. Like, we're not saying that Kinsey is the final word on this. Like, what are you talking about? It would be like going to Origin of Species and going, that is how we understand evolution. No, it's not. It's valuable work, but we've learned a lot more since then. It doesn't mean that everything has to be accurate in there. Like, why do they go back to the 50s for our current knowledge on a subject and go, hey, this is what we thought in the 50s, and it's based upon that? That is the genetic fallacy. You're basically saying, hey, I'm gonna judge this thing on the basis of where it comes from, not what it actually is. It's just a straw man. It's horrible.
I think that she's so used to getting her sex ed from like a book whose teachings are written in stone that she's literally like, well, what's the secular Bible for sex ed? Oh, Kinsey's books. I've got it right here. She literally had that thing. It was looking like a big old biblical tome that she just busted out. She's like, I've read this whole thing. And like she's forgetting the fact that like modern sex ed and sexology is driven by data and scientific literature. It's not just what some guy in the 50s wrote in his book.
Yeah. And yeah, it's just dishonest. It's really dishonest.
Yeah, well, creationists always have outdated sources, so what else is new?
She's just kind of annoying me at how much of a sort of sellout she is. She's not even a psychologist. She's a philosophical theologist who worked, mundane jobs after she got out of college. Well, it looks like she found her calling to lie for a living. Congratulations. Which is annoying because these organizations will pay them boku bucks to just put their name to this frigging nonsense. It really annoys me.
Yeah.
To do is based on Alfred Kinsey's work, they are trying to promote that type of diversity. Now, on the onset, we might even agree and say, we think diversity is a good thing, right? God created us all different and with different personalities and skills and abilities. But what Alfred Kinsey was trying to push is this concept, if a person wants to engage in these activities, then that's normal. So what's happening in culture now is, in order to promote diversity, these books are coming into the schools, these lessons are coming into the schools that promote sexual diversity. So now the idea is, well, kids are going to be taught about homosexual sex acts, as well as what, sex acts might be like for transgender individuals, and then heterosexual sex acts, and that everybody has a right to engage in these things. And
is this
holy crap? She does realize that some of these children are going to be gay, doesn't she? Like, they're going to have to know about, safety in their own sexual acts as well.
I mean, I want to know what kind of sex acts she thinks children are learning about. Like,
I would love for her to explain transgender sex because she would probably, she would have no idea.
I just imagine
no idea what
her,
you're talking about.
Like busting out like a copy of the Kama Sutra and being like, they're teaching this to children.
I apologize to Big Bad Mama.
And it's normalizing many sexual acts or behaviors that actually are incredibly risky. They lead to a higher risk of STDs. They lead to a higher risk of emotional problems. They lead to a higher risk of relational problems as well.
Is that what she's saying?
Yeah, she's a bigot.
Homosexual
sex. Has all this high risk kind of stuff, and it's only marginally higher, and with protection that we teach them in sex ed, by the way.
Yeah, I was about to say, you know what else leads to a higher risk of contracting an STD? Not using protection, which she was just complaining about them trying to teach people to use protection.
Yes.
Like, it's like a damned if you do, damned if you don't with this woman.
Oh, of course it is, because you're supposed to read your Bible and just not have sex at all, even though we see the outcomes of doing this and they're horrendous. It's kind of like this wishful thinking, like, well, if everybody just read their Bible and didn't touch one another, we'd all be fine. But that isn't what happens. Like, you've got, tune into Reality FM for a second. They, everything shows us that no matter what you do, that kids are gonna do some of this stuff. They are. Just, you have to get that through your head. Like, what you've done has not worked. It has not worked.
Mark, I know that abstinence has never been effective, has never worked at increasing societal human outcomes in hundreds of years, that every time it's ever been attempted. But this time, it's going to be different. This time.
Sorry, I forgot. No, we've got a philosophical theologist on board. It's got to work this time.
A philosophical apologist. Like,
well, that's
true. Her degree is literally in apologetics. Like, is that, anyone got any bets on whether or not her university is accredited or not?
Oh, I don't know about that.
And yet it's being pushed because of this concept that Alfred Kinsey even pushed, that kids are sexual from birth. You know, they have this concept that kids have sexual desires all the way from out of the womb. And in some ways, we would hear that, oh, kids are sexual from birth. And we would even say, okay, I kind of agree with that, right? Like, boys and girls are born as either male or female.
Oh my God.
And so they have a biological sex, and they also have the potential to develop into beings that can sexually reproduce. So we would kind of say they do have that sexual, that they are sexual from being a child. But that's not what this is meaning. What this means is that a child right out of the womb has the right to sexual pleasure, that they experience those desires. And I think for most people who would consider themselves conservative or Christians, they would say at that point, well, hang on a second. We would say that a child naturally develops those sexual desires when.
Okay, that was a lot of bullshit. But I just wanted to say thank you to Savage for this $5 super chat. It says we wouldn't want to teach things that lead to emotional issues. Now, would we? Cough, purity culture, cough. And I want to highlight this comment because I'll have you know that these are 3 alpha males, and this is what real peak male performance looks like. So I'm sorry if you're triggered, even though I'm not on camera.
Nothing shows a real alpha male like going into chat and throwing like things about people you don't know. Yeah, I've actually been married and with my wife for like 23 years. So.
I would just love to see what this male specimen looks like.
Oh yeah,
this guy, this keyboard warrior navigator. I would love to see what this guy's rocking.
Okay, for C science, XX equals female and XY equals male, right? That's correct, but some people are XXY or XX, or some people are intersex and have more than 2 sex chromosomes.
Correct. And some people
issues.
have an XY and the Y doesn't express, so they turn out female. So it's a lot more complex than that. And again, like, I mean, C science, black and white thinking, of course, as usual. So I follow this creator called Bloom, who's a singer in a band, and she has an XY chromosome and testicles in her stomach, but they never expressed, so she is female. It's so much more complicated than what you think. Like, if genetics don't express that that Y chromosome, you will actually end up female.
Apparently he's not convinced. So
it's that great argument. Nuh-uh. I love it. That's amazing.
It's really not worth it with C science, to be honest.
I know.
I'm aware. Well, that's why I had it blocked.
He finally made a relevant comment. That's why I showed this one, because it was actually relevant to what we're talking about. But it'll be the last one. So.
They start to go through puberty, and that is that's getting them ready for sexual reproduction. And kids who are experiencing that before that time may have been abused. They may have been exposed to sexually explicit information ahead of time. So I think we just need to be careful that these concepts have been creeping in, and the language that we're using is sometimes hard to challenge, because in some ways we even kind of agree with it.
You know, it's interesting.
I would love
obviously,
to know
from
her
God's word,
credentials.
She had an undergraduate in mathematics, and then her master's in philosophical apologetics, and then after school she was a photographer, and now she runs some sort of children's Bible theater thing.
Yeah, feed the sheep.
That's one heck of a career right there. That's a career arc I wouldn't be putting up on my LinkedIn, to be honest with you. But, you know.
God designed
look, I'm not going to be harsh to her. I just want to know that she's got a handle on the actual science and the psychology to be able to comment on this, and she absolutely does not.
Mark, no, she does not.
It's so bad.
I also just found it was interesting that she was just like saying like, and some of this language about like tolerance and not hating people and diversity being good, like we might even agree with some of that language. It's like, wow, really? Like, you agreeing with something reasonable? Wow. But then she's like, no, but we have to fight against it because our book says, get all that reasonable stuff out of here.
And there's only two sexes kind of thing, you know, and you know she's lining up for a transphobic comment right there. You know,
yeah, I forget which commandment that is, but I'm pretty sure that that's one of them.
Yeah.
And for sexuality. And I mean, it says, I'm gonna read it. So here it is, Genesis chapter 2. You don't have to get very far in the Bible before you realize what's going on. God made Adam and Eve, and Adam took Eve and said, this is now bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman because she was taken out of man. Therefore shall a man leave his father and mother and be joined to the wife, and they shall become one flesh. There really is a spiritual and a physical bringing together of man and woman. And as I was thinking about this, I want to kind of let you run.
Can you imagine if they actually taught that in sex ed to kids? Yeah, and then you become one flesh. All these kids are like, what? What?
What's supposed to mean? Yeah.
They're like, I'm afraid to get a girlfriend because I don't want to be melded into some sort of a horrendous flesh monster with her.
Yeah, I don't want to look like a David Cronenberg movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And thank you to Rosina, I think that's how you pronounce that, for the $4.99 super chat. It says their idea of sexually explicit is holding hands. And thank you for all the people sending super chats, because it's been quite a few of you. So thank you.
Pretty much, I agree. But it's also like, you know, medical diagrams of genitalia kind of thing is their idea of sexually explicit as well, which has all the you know, sexual titillation of a brick. You know, like seriously, they honestly think that any diagram of any sexual anatomical part is porn, basically. Yeah. Which just shows how repressed they are if they're getting their jollies from looking at a medical diagram. Like, seriously.
Right.
With the show after I say this, but I was thinking about this. I went, we are designed. God created sex. He created it for reproduction and for pleasure and to unite two people together. Think about it. If
that was probably unintentionally gay.
If it's like that and God designed it that way, trying to short circuit it really doesn't help the family. It doesn't help couples, because I know that I need to please my wife in other areas in order to become close in intimacy. And so it creates this cycle that helps me get closer with my wife rather than not care about her and just use her for my pleasure. If evolution is true, and I was just thinking about this morning, if evolution is true and we're not designed, instead we're just molecules in motion, then based on deviant behavior around the world, it happens all the time around the world, okay? Women should evolve or could evolve the ability to enjoy rape. Because it happens all the time.
Whoa!
So
whoa!
Dude!
Whoa!
What?
Are you serious?
Like, I don't even know how to address this because it's so ludicrous on its face of it. But like, even trying to follow his logic here, like being assaulted and getting pregnant from your assaulter, like your own pleasure didn't come into that equation. Like, that happens whether or not you got pleasure from that. Like that is totally irrelevant to whether or not you'll get pregnant from that. So like, even trying to follow his own stupid logic, it cannot be followed. It's like, this came out of so far out of left field.
Right. Like, and plus, if you look at evolutionarily, the woman is like, she needs, like, you know, back in the day, it was like you all protected one another. We're not an individualistic species. We're a social species. So you want to have a sexual partner that will protect you as a man as well as a woman, that can look out for you, take care of you. And our word is not one of those frigging things, okay? It is a sort of use and discard mechanism, which is frigging immoral as fuck.
It almost reminds me of like, in at least I've heard, like, in medieval times, like, they thought that in order for a woman to become pregnant, she needed to orgasm. And, like, it almost makes me think that Kent Hovind probably taught that to his kid. like like Eric probably learned from Kent that she cannot get pregnant unless she comes. So I don't know.
Oh,
Mark Reed is going
Oh.
to eat it.
no, that's an awful statement to say. Hey, evolution. If evolution's true, then our word should be a thing. That is so. Like, tell me you don't understand the first thing about evolution without saying you don't understand the first thing about evolution. Because a social species that has that kind of thing going on will probably not be successful to any great degree.
And if I can just point out the unfortunate fact to this asshole that some women, some victims of SA do orgasm. And it's a really disgusting and horrible fact, but it's true. So, like, what is he? Let's just move on because this is just ridiculous. Thank you to Rosina.
That actually made me mad. Like,
Yeah.
to say, hey, evolution means that we, what an ignorant and absolutely disgusting statement to make.
I'll also point out that, like, using an actual example from evolution, like, ducks are one of the species that has, like, the highest rate of non-consensual, like, sexual intercourse rates. And, like, female ducks literally evolved vaginas that, like, spiral to make it harder for their assaulters to get them pregnant. Like, it literally works in the complete opposite way that freaking Hovind is trying to put forward here. Like, it's just, it's so wrong and so bad on every level. I mean,
the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, does it? Really? I mean,
yeah,
this is
I'm
the kind of
offended.
stupid shit that Kent says.
Yeah.
The ability to enjoy that. Children could evolve the ability to enjoy abuse. I mean, if there's no moral standard, then perhaps Christians who are trying to say this is what's right and this is what's wrong are just getting in the way of evolution and preventing what actually could be happening, what an evolutionary perspective that could be happening. I know that's kind of not where you're going, but I was just thinking about that going, wow, if evolution
no one's
is true,
going there. Literally no one except for you. You're the only person going to these subjects. Like, seriously, why are you going to these subjects? This guy, I don't know. There's something wrong with this man. Like, nobody was thinking that. I know that's not where you were going or anybody else except for me. Why the fuck did you go there then? What an idiot.
Well, Eric Hovind has also been quoted as saying, if evolution is true, then what Josh Duggar did wasn't wrong.
Yeah, Eric Hovind is what happens when you don't teach your child about either sex ed or evolution. This is what you get.
Yeah, we're seeing a real-time example of why we need sex ed right here among just good education in general.
All you have to ask is whether humans would be more successful if something was happening or less successful if something is happening. That's all you have to do. And we would be less successful with all this stuff going on. That's it. Your objection is over, sir.
Right.
That's all.
There is no right. There is no wrong. There's no moral standard. Only with an absolute God do you get these moral standards to say, no, there's a time and there's a place and there's a path and there's a...
It's called college.
reason to bring couples together, to create strong families, to create strong communities, to be done the way God designed it to be done. So sorry for my little monologue. That's what came to my mind, but you got so much you want to cover.
You should be sorry.
Yeah, you should apologize.
Or don't put it up on your channel at all is probably a better idea.
Yeah, this is being broadcast.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, thank you, Savage, for the additional super chat. It says evolution is about what is, not what should. That makes sense. Never thought of it that way.
Yeah, kind of. It's whatever works to keep you surviving. Yeah, it's whatever is at the moment that is letting you survive. Sure. It doesn't really make moral judgments like what ought to happen and what ought not to happen.
True.
It just says, hey, you can do anything, but you might not survive. You might go extinct before you actually find out it's a bad idea. It happens. That's why 99, how much is it, Grayson, of organism species are extinct? 99.9 or something percent of species are actually extinct. And if we evolved in doing this kind of thing, instead of being cooperative society that sort of looked out and cared for one another, we probably wouldn't be around.
I would just AJ, your question that you asked Kent once really stands out to me in a moment like this, where Eric is trying to use the argument that God designed humans to like have sex within marriage and to reproduce and to have sexual pleasure. And I just really would love it if somebody would just ask him, like, hey, Eric, why do you think that God designed men to have, a little pleasure center in their prostate where they can orgasm from taking it from behind? Why would God design male anatomy like that? Doesn't that make you think, Eric?
That I keep getting people telling me that I keep getting comments from people about that question that I asked Ken. It keeps coming back up. I am enjoying every minute of it. All right, let's keep going.
Kind of want to let you take over from here and keep leading us.
Yeah, I do want to respond to that though with a couple of things. First of all, a lot of people are pushing this argument about sexuality in the faces of Christians by saying we don't want to hear your moral standard because it's not respecting and loving of other people. But what I have found as I've studied more and more about this comprehensive sex education is that they have their own moral standard. Their moral standard is anything goes as long as the individuals are consenting to it. And so that's their moral standard. And like you're saying, from even an evolutionary standpoint, we would have to question that and say, why? Why are you holding us to that standard, right?
Yes.
So that's just one thing I'd been thinking of. The other thing, too, is you brought up this concept about how God designed our sexuality to work a particular way and the purposes for it. And I struggled for a little bit with this concept then, like, why didn't God just make it so that like any other version of it just didn't work and it wasn't pleasurable and that type of thing. And it was actually in the Chronicles of Narnia.
Oh my God! Wait, she was
Chronicles of Narnia? C.S. Lewis?
She was like actually trying to address that question. I didn't even remember this. She actually did say, why would God design homosexual sex to be pleasurable? And like, AJ, that was probably the most funny part that you could have paused that with. She's like, I thought she was about to quote the Bible, but she's like, well, in the Chronicles of Narnia.
Aslan the Great. Come on, no, tell me all about C.S. Lewis's opinion, because I just love a fantasy author's opinion on stuff. You know, why don't we ask Tolkien what his opinion on it, or somebody like that? Come on now. I realize that C.S. Lewis did a bit of theology, but he's certainly not in no position to make comments about human psychology. There's no way.
Series that I found this example in the Chronicles of Narnia. The kids had to go get a special apple from a special tree and bring it back, and Aslan was going to do something with this apple seed to protect Narnia. And what ended up happening was this special apple was eaten by the witch. And it was warned to the little boy, don't you eat of it. Because the reason is that apple was created to do what it's going to do, and it's going to do it. It was going to give the witch long life. It was going to give her youthfulness. But because she ate it not the way that Aslan said it was supposed to, it became a curse to her. And I thought, wow, that is exactly like sexuality. God created it to be a good thing. He created it to be pleasurable. And people are still going to experience that because that's the way God created it. but it now becomes a curse. There becomes all of this other baggage and garbage that comes with it, the addiction, the brokenness, the physical, STDs and things that end up happening too. So just to kind of add that in there, we can talk to our children about these concepts. I mean, when I read...
Stop. This expert who's researching is going to the Chronicles of Narnia and saying, in her expert opinion, because Aslan gave an apple to a young man and the Ice Queen or whoever, the witch ate it, that means whoever. Was it the White Witch? I have no idea. Yeah. I read once ages ago. I don't remember that much.
See, Mark, you need to read your scriptures, okay?
I've got to read more C.S. Lewis for my research into sexual behavior in humans. Yeah, I forgot that's on the curriculum of biology. So that's her example. That is where she goes to for whether the behavior of homosexual sex is healthy or unhealthy for individuals. Is in this fairy tale, a magic apple was given to the wrong person. Are you fucking joking me? Seriously.
Well, Mark, I was reading The Lord of the Rings the other day, and
right, counterfactual, sure.
And Frodo took the ring from Gollum, and Gollum had that ring for hundreds of years, and it had corrupted him into some sort of horrible little goblin man. And I was thinking to myself, that's just like sexuality, if you really think about it.
I am thinking about it now. I wasn't before. I am now.
Yeah, think about that one, and read your Bible.
Well, I was watching Star Wars, and because in Star Wars the lightsaber got really big, and then they hit it against another guy's big lightsaber. I thought that's exactly what sex is like, and that men should be docking all the time. That's exactly, that's absolute proof.
And listen, okay, some of us have lightsabers that bend a little to the left, like Count Dooku. It's all good.
They're never perfect. Right. Yeah, exactly. It has a bit of a kink in it, that's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, it's like biblical stories have been reinterpreted in other literary works. Is she just like figuring this out now?
The problem with this is she will only ever get work for these creationist idiots. That's all she'll ever get work for now. There's no reputable science place that will ever hire this woman. Like, if she wants to go into some sort of psychology field or something, there is no way someone is going to hire the girl who thinks C.S. Lewis is a good resource for determining healthy sexuality. I'm really sorry, honey, but your career is over. And the only people that will hire you are these people. And it's really sad. What I would probably do is go back to school, maybe get some sort of education in the field that you're trying to speak in, and then go out and sort of make a career on actual research, not whatever garbage you're doing at the moment.
That book, The Chronicles of Narnia, with my kids, I'm thinking this will be great, that when I have this conversation with my kids, I can refer back to this book and they'll get it, So I'm not saying we shouldn't have conversations with kids. It just needs to be appropriate.
It needs to be guided by Chronicles of Narnia.
If you don't mind, if we have enough time, I would like to show a few.
Sorry.
Like, it's appropriate to have conversations with kids, but instead of using peer-reviewed science and things from experts, please do use Chronicles of Narnia as your source books for sexual education. Look, I'm all for it. Let's roll out Chronicles of Narnia as our sex textbooks in high school. Like, please, let's do it. See what happens. What am I watching?
I don't know. Should we jump ahead a little bit, because this video is dragging on?
It's up to you. You're steering the ship, mate. It's all you. So, all right. I'm sorry. I'm just flabbergasted. I thought this would be bad, but this is bad.
I don't remember at what part this was. I thought it was earlier on in the video, but at some point she starts talking about the horrible things that happens whenever you have sex ed in schools. And I don't know if we already hit that part, but she just literally lies out of both sides of her mouth. And she just says, like, sex ed is responsible for everything bad. It's like, it's horrible. I don't know what part of the video it is though. So
Yeah, because that kind of sounds like it's describing the whole video. Do you remember like a specific thing that she said? Because I can look it up in the transcript.
I mean,
key
yeah,
term.
she was bringing up STDs, I think, or I don't know. I mean, it's fine. We can just keep going with it. I just I don't remember where it was. There's so much that she says that just like
Yeah,
fries
seriously.
your brain. I didn't even
Two more
remember the Chronicle of Narnia.
Right?
Examples that are not appropriate of what is being taught to children. So this next book, I want to show a couple of pages from this. It's called Sex is a Funny Word. I have this book right here with me. You can maybe even see all my little notes. So this isn't just stuff taken off the internet. I've read through this and I know what's in here. So this book is meant for children in 2nd grade to 5th grade. So that's when kids are 8 to 10 years old. So please keep that in mind as we look at some of this. So first of all, there is a page in here that is called Touching Yourself, and it's an image of a person in a bathtub, their hand slips under the water, and then you can see all of these little wiggly lines around them. And on this page, it says, touching yourself is one way to learn about yourself and your body and your feelings. Now, there is also on another page this image of a little girl who's sitting at a picnic table with her family or friends, and she has her hands in her pants. So there's not much of an explanation about this in the book. They're just showing kids images of
I'm sorry, this illustration.
That's a pretty funny picture.
Yeah, but they haven't showed the opposite page explaining it. So it's probably saying, hey, there's some places that you shouldn't do this, right? There's some places that aren't appropriate for it, which is why the sort of grandma character looks so concerned. So they're probably trying to teach them, hey, this is a thing you do in private if you're going to do it, kind of thing. So
that's why they're promoting it in the bathroom by herself. They're saying this is a normal situation.
Correct.
And here's the opposite. So, but she cut off that page. Yeah.
Also, this is like not part of sex curriculum, is it? It's just like some book.
It's a book
I wrote. Okay.
Can I do the call outs for this? I'd love to do the call outs for this.
Yeah,
all right. So Regius gifted 5 Atheist Junior memberships. Do you have any special word for your memberships? Like I've got readerships. Ember's got memberships. Do you have any special word for it?
I'll have to think about that.
Atheist Junior.
Junior membership. Okay, and hit Project Nihilist. Tell me more. Rosina Keller, Jason T, Raul Hernandez. Congratulations, winner. Enjoy your emotes and your fun times. Be in public, please. Be in private, please. Not in public.
Not in public.
Not in public.
This of touching yourself and pleasuring yourself. And even in public, I mean, that's what that one picture was. Now, in this book, there's also information on erections, and it says that erections can happen when we touch ourselves to feel good, but they can also happen at other times. And so they go on to just explain when that can happen. And the way that they are describing this to kids is that it's one way to think about erections is that they are just your body's way of exercising on its own. So that's what the page says. And if you can see the images on the side of the page, you have a little boy who's in bed. His arms are underneath the covers. And again, there's those same little lines coming out of the bed. You have a little girl who's sitting out in public behind a tree. And again, she has her...
Wait a minute. I don't think that's a tree. I think that's a curtain. Am I wrong?
No, there's a flower next to it. It's a tree.
Yeah, I think it's a tree. Yeah, there's grass.
Okay. Fair enough.
Hand near her private parts. And again, you see those little lines coming out. But the third picture shows somebody dancing, and it's clearly somebody dancing because there's little music notes around them. But again, you have the same kind of lines coming out from this person. So this can be incredibly confusing. It's even confusing for me as an adult when I look at these pictures because I'm not sure if the book is trying.
No, it's making me think like, how come I've never had the lines come out whenever you know, where are my lines?
I've never seen somebody dance in an erotic way before. That's not something that has ever happened.
I don't know. This is confusing content for me. I don't know how to navigate.
And I can't relate to these characters. My skin's not purple. I cannot relate to this at all.
trying to say, oh, having an erection is just like exercising, that it's the same kind of experience.
I just love this comment because it's true. These are lines on paper, literal lines on paper.
AJ, I gotta say, your chat, man, is great. They've been on fire all night.
Yeah. Shout out to the chat. We've got 77 viewers. I think almost 80. Thank you for everybody watching. It's been awesome. And thank you for all the super chats. Yeah, like the stream and this. I think we're gonna power through the rest of this video. It's gonna be difficult, but we're getting there.
Or if they're trying to say even people, when they dance and exercise, they can also experience this. It's very confusing, but they're trying to equate things to kids to normalize these type of sexual experiences at their age, at 8 years old. Mm-hmm. They're trying to normalize this. So this is obviously.
Yeah, these kids should be shunned and they should be labeled as freaks.
Ashamed of themselves and ashamed of their bodies, kind of thing. Like occasionally, like this book's for 8 to 10-year-olds. Around 10, sometimes earlier, they can, like a little boy will get an erection, and it's very confusing. They don't know what's going on, and sort of shaming them about it is not a healthy way to deal with it. If God was such an awesome designer, why does he make that happen?
Mark, you should be ashamed for trying to normalize erections, okay? Go to the boner corner.
Yeah, I mean, I read this book. It was called Red Dragon. It was a prequel to Silence of the Lambs. And in that book, this grandmother threatened to cut off her grandson's penis when he had an erection. And he just turned out to be a serial killer. So, I mean, it's probably not that.
Well, that's as much evidence as she provided from Chronicles of Narnia, so you're on equal footing there.
I can do better than boner corner. All right, Mark, go to erection detention right now.
Okay. Well, I must admit I do have a little bit of a semi. Like I
whoa, Mark, that was some sexual education that we did not need.
You just put the Bible in your lap and the rest will take care of itself.
Okay.
It's very concerning if you think about an 8-year-old kid getting their hands on this book. Now, this book was in my public library. I've also seen that it's in the public school that I went to when I was a kid in middle school. So this is readily available to kids in a lot of different places. Now, one of the other things in this book is this idea on this next page. It says, in your family, are there times when it's okay and times when it's not okay to talk about middle parts? Have you heard other names for middle parts? And do you have more questions about your middle parts? So what's actually happening here is children are no longer being taught that their private parts are private. They are being taught that they're your middle parts. And just like your midriff or your belly button, if you want to choose to show that to people, or you want to wear a bikini out on the beach or whatever, they're now starting to equate private parts with just the middle section of your body, and that they're not private anymore.
Wait, you got a problem with bikinis now? I don't.
Is she trying to say that kids are just going around hanging dong? Like, she's just like, well, they're not private anymore. They're just in the middle. So, just whip them out.
Well, how does the bikini not still cover your private parts?
Right?
I don't know.
What does she even think is happening in the world?
I don't know.
Yeah.
And this page is disturbing. I hate to show this page, but honestly, it is not as bad as some of the other pages that actually show genitalia. And in this book, on this page, it says, like other holes in the body, the anus is usually very sensitive, which means it can feel good to touch, but it can also hurt if we are rough with it. Because the anus is where the outside of our body meets the inside, and because it is where poo comes out, we need to wash our hands after touching it. Now, if you think about this, in most cases, we would agree and say, yes, we have to be very careful with our private parts. We don't want to hurt.
This is so awkward.
Yeah.
It's totally awkward. Totally.
He's complaining about kids learning that poo comes out of your butt.
It's awkward because of her, not.
Well, I
The
think
situation
it's
is
the
hilarious.
suggestion that like sort of touching your anus can feel good. Like, how dare you even say that? You know, it's
Yeah.
like if they might find out. You know, kids they do play with bits of themselves. That's what happens. I'm really sorry to break it to you.
I think Eric Hovind just found out right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that Holly Smalls said it right in the comments. Like, this woman probably had an aneurysm when she read Everybody Poops.
Dude, yeah, I love my chat. They're so clever. It makes me mad sometimes.
Our bodies, we need to clean our hands and wash our hands after, going to the bathroom and the restroom. This is not teaching children that. This is teaching children this idea that we could be touching these parts of our body for sexual pleasure, and then we need to make sure that we're keeping ourselves clean because these parts of our body are kind of dirty, right? So again, this is just very concerning that it's promoting and normalizing these types of activities to very young children.
The normalization of this is what's interesting. So you got adults that are going, I don't think this is that big of a deal. You're an adult. I mean, think back to when you were a kid. This is not acceptable teaching for kids. And you said this is 8 through 10-year-old kids are getting these.
Wait.
Some parents.
At what age do y'all think that Eric Hovind learned that poop comes out of your butt? like 20?
I don't know.
I'm not going to answer
Well, I
that
don't think
question.
he even still knows. I think he just found out 2 seconds ago.
He's diapered currently.
Parents
got a
are
colostomy bag
okay
underneath
with
those
their
pants.
kids being experiencing some of this information and being knowledgeable of that. Again, these books are not. They're not pro-parenting. So that's what this page is. That's what this example is. So this is like a little comic of a girl that comes home and she's talking to her dad about just how her day went. And she asks her dad, what does bleep mean? Because she heard this word at school. And the dad's reaction is he gets angry at her and is like, who taught you that? Like, why are you saying that? You can't use that word. And she's like, that's not fair, right? Like, I'm just asking you what this means. And he sends her off to her bedroom or whatever. Go do your schoolwork. We'll talk about it later. And when she's gone, the dad's partner comes over and he asks his partner who the bleep taught her that word. And so the whole point of these books is that they're also driving this wedge between parents and children.
You two are the dad in this scenario.
Yeah.
That's you.
Yeah.
Also, a plot twist. I think it's a gay couple, right? Was that what it was insinuating?
I don't
Was it
think
two
so.
guys?
It went
But I
over
think
my head.
The bottom right corner. I mean, this is two guys, right? I don't know. Maybe they have an adopted daughter. I don't know.
Maybe.
They are purple and green.
Yeah.
And so the whole point of these books is that they're also driving this wedge between parents and children, making parents seem that they're hypocritical, they are ignorant of these subjects, that they might be embarrassed to talk about them, that they might get angry if children bring up these conversations. And the ultimate point is that they're making parents seem like they are unsafe. This is not where you should be going as kids to talk about these issues. Don't talk to your parents. Come talk to the experts. And in fact, I wish I had screen captured it, but there was a very prominent organization. I can't remember if it was Planned Parenthood, and I'm sure you can find it on some of the other organizations. They do try to speak highly of like getting parents involved, but they also make the claim that sex education should only be taught from professional experts, as if parents they don't have the ability or the knowledge to teach their kids these things.
So they're literally trying to drive a wedge, trying to say,
I think it's sort of telling them what parents shouldn't do, isn't it? Like, it's a joke because the parents like don't say that word and then says that word, like who the bleep told them.
Yeah,
that's
the punchline.
That's
Also,
the punchline.
Neither of these two should be responsible for sex ed for anybody, like
Correct.
at
Right.
all.
Mm.
The only ones. And what's hard for me is there's a lot of people who believe, there's a lot of parents who are like, well, I'm not an expert in this. You guys are the experts. And I go, I don't care if you have an expert in, Star Warsology. It doesn't make Star Warsology true. It doesn't make, anyway. So it just gives, it's kind of like what we deal with all the time with the evolutionists. It doesn't matter if you have a PhD. I've met a lot of very, very, very highly trained, well-decorated, stupid people. So just because you have a lot of education
sure
doesn't
you
mean
have.
you're right about something. And that's what we're getting at, is what is right and what is wrong. Tony threw in here. Thank you, Tony. Matthew 18:6. If anyone caused one of these little ones who believe in me to stumble, it would be better for him to have a large millstone hung around their neck than be dropped in the depths of the sea. And protecting children really is important. And right now, that is not happening in our public education system.
Does that apply to somebody bringing child abusers to their compounds? Does that abuse to that?
Well, that
I mean,
Bible verse. That Bible verse specifically is talking about making children sin, and it's not a sin to be educated about sexual activity.
Yeah, and if you want to protect kids, you know what has a really strongly correlated inverse correlation with the rates of child sexual abuse? Like educating them about like sex ed. Like when you have a strong sex ed program, the rates of children being sexually abused goes down because they know what that is and they know it's wrong and they know they should speak out about that stuff and avoid that stuff, and they can't be taken advantage of when they're actually educated about these things.
Yeah, we were talking about that in the offline, that if kids are equipped with the language, that if something like that does happen to them, that they can talk to their parents or an authority figure, a guardian, and tell them what actually happened to them versus not knowing how to articulate such an uncomfortable and terrible situation.
Right.
And thank you, Savage, for the super chat. It says, doesn't matter if you have a PhD in theology.
Yeah, these two are absolutely, they're absolutely not about protecting children. Like they're the kinds of things that they are supportive of are putting children in more harm. Like that is what is the result of their preferred policies. So it's just like, it's like stealing valor for them to try to pretend like they care about protecting children.
Yeah, I just keep picturing Helen Lovejoy. Won't somebody please think of the children?
Yeah.
Bridget, give me like 60 more seconds before I have to let social media go, and then I want to make sure and tell them about your website, which is fmsfound.org. Feed My Sheep Foundation. It's the feedmysheepfoundation.org. But fmsfound.org. Please check that out. Give me 60 more seconds with social media before I have to let them go to kind of recap this, and then we'll move on. I know you got a lot more of the examples and details that we want to go into and talk to the Creation Today partners about how we need to be responding.
So I would just basically summarize and say, don't think that this isn't affecting your kids or your neighbor's kids or your family in some way, or even the kids at your church. This is happening all across the U.S. It's being geared towards even homeschooling families. These books are available in libraries. So this is something that's really important for everybody to be aware of.
And just because your child is not influenced directly by it, the indirect influence is going
Okay, we're about to have another big bombshell coming up, just fair warning.
to come by the kids that they hang around. So Satan knows that he can create this virus and get it started and let it infect the population, which is exactly what it's doing. That's why we have people trying to normalize this. And look at what's happening in the news. Look at Epstein Island and the number of people, the client list coming out of who actually went there. And they're talking about pedophilia, and that's why they're trying to normalize pedophilia. Actually, somebody said that in the chat. I forgot who you were, Creation Today partner, but they're trying to normalize pedophilia as, oh, this is a normal part of sexuality. And instead of calling them a pedophile, they call them minor attracted. That sounds less offensive. So we're watching this go further and further. There are already countries that are okay with bestiality, okay with people having sex with animals. So
I'm a beast attracted person.
What is he talking about? What kinds of things is Eric Hovind watching that he thinks this is happening?
And Grayson made a good point. It's trying to stop child abuse, because when they know what this is, they can say, hey, no, and that teaches them, don't go with strangers to these places. You know, if anybody touches you in a place that makes you uncomfortable, tell your parent or an adult, kind of thing. It's trying to stop that happening, not actually encourage it. It's ridiculous. This is just horrible.
I also like how he drops like the woke mind virus. He's like,
yeah,
like, come on, dude.
You got to get that QAnon. Thank you to the QAnon member in the chat who reminded me of this to bring up the pedophilia.
I'm actually genuinely shocked that Eric Hovind is not a flat earther at this point. Like, why not?
Yeah, same. Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
There's some sort of bars there, but that's so low. You know, why don't you just kick the bar away and play in the mud with the rest of the flat earthers? What was the other thing I was going to say? I was going to say something else. Oh yeah, they're like woke mind virus, but they literally call themselves Feed the Sheep. Like they are proud of being sheep, and they're like, oh, but you've got a woke mind virus. Really? You're a bunch of sheep saying, hey, you know, free thought is bad.
Yeah.
I mean, feed my sheep sounds kind of pornographic. I'm just saying.
And hey, they were railing against bestiality too.
Yeah. I wanted to read the super chat. It says, in the beginnings, humans created God in their image. I would agree with that. All right, we're almost done. We're almost done, and then we'll recap and reflect. So let's power through this.
What I've learned is it doesn't stop going downhill. And if you care about your children and you care about your culture, it's time to educate. One of the best things you can do is share this program, share Bridget's information with your friends, the people that you're around, and say, I need you to be aware of what's being taught. Watch this 30-minute show, and then go get Bridget's information at Feed My Sheep Foundation, fmsfound.org. And is that the best place to go to get your information and get in contact with you? Do you guys already have a mailing list or things like that you guys do?
We have an emailing list that people can subscribe to, but on our website, it is full of videos. It is full of articles. We also have resources so that you can go to those firsthand resources if you're interested to. You don't have to just take our word for it. You can see it in the books. You can see it from those websites. So yeah, absolutely. There's a ton of information on there.
So we need people to be warriors. We need people to stand up and say, I'm going to find out what's being taught. And if it's not correct, if it's not godly, if it's not in line with family values, I'm going to go to the school board and I'm going to talk about that. By the way, that's a whole other thing. They slap the label family friendly on something and make it seem like it's family friendly. Matter of fact, before I let social media go, Kent, that last clip I gave you, something about family friendly drag or something like that.
The organizers.
Oh my God. Does he have Ken Andrew? Does he have his brother working behind the scenes here? I think he does. I think the other Hovind son is actually working for behind the scenes here. That is crazy. Because he said, hey, Ken.
There's people wearing all the clothes. I don't understand why this is bad.
Say today was a family-friendly event with a safe environment separate from their normal operations. In a statement, they said, we believe everyone should have a space to celebrate who they are. Mr. Misters is a place where everyone is welcome to feel accepted, safe, and...
I think it was a drag show. Pretty sure.
Yeah, but there wasn't any nudity or anything. It was just people wearing clothes. Like, I don't...
Those clothes were not inappropriate at all.
Well, right. It was a man wearing women's clothing, which is blasphemous to God.
What, you mean like a priest?
I mean, Eric Hovind is a boy wearing men's clothing.
Pretending to be an adult here.
How long until they start saying, "Oh, you know what? The minor attracted people," because that's what they're doing. That's my whole point. That's why I started with
never going to happen.
They are grooming
I wanted to point this out earlier. What he's doing is called a slippery slope fallacy. It's basically saying, hey, because we accept that one thing happens, then there's a high chance this thing happens, and then this thing and this thing and this thing, all the way down the line until you get to something really bad. But the problem is that doesn't actually mean it's going to happen. Like if you allow, say, marijuana to be smoked, it doesn't mean you're going to unrestrict opium. You know, like this is the slippery slope fallacy. One doesn't necessarily lead to another. And just because we allow gay marriage doesn't mean we necessarily allow marriage to your car or to an animal or something. That is totally incorrect and a fallacious way of thinking. It doesn't logically make sense.
I was trying to remember how we got onto the topic of like Jeffrey Epstein and pedophiles and bestiality and stuff. And yeah, you're right. It was literally just him trying to be like, scary things, slippery slopes. Like, oh my God. And like also like, Jeffrey Epstein, that guy who's notoriously normalized by society, that everyone just universally agrees is fine and normal, right? No, wait. No, that one of the most reviled human beings of the last 10 years. Like, what are you talking about? Slippery slopes. Like, that guy on both sides of the political spectrum was universally condemned by everybody.
Right.
Literally, just his female associate just survived a shanking attempt in jail recently.
Giselle Maxwell, I think her name is. Yeah, something
That's
like
how
that.
much people.
It's Ghislaine Maxwell.
That's how much people tolerated Epstein. Just somebody associated with him. Okay, I don't think we need to show the rest of that. It's like 2 minutes, so I think we can just maybe, because we just hit the 2-hour mark and this video has been exhausting. So I think I'm gonna say my final thoughts, and then we'll just go around the group, and then I think we could sign off. So. Mark, you brought up something that is big soapbox of mine, which is drug legalization, and I think that's a perfect analogy, because people from the beginning of time, people are going to do drugs and they're going to have sex. You can't prevent these things. All you can do is what's called harm reduction, and I think that's all that you would be trying to do by decriminalizing or legalizing marijuana. Is you're stopping people from dealing with actual criminals who are dealers who sometimes do other illicit things. Not always, but some of them are not so savory people. Whereas going to a dispensary is more safe for people who are like grannies with glaucoma. And sex ed is just harm reduction for, teenagers are going to have sex. I mean, we know that's going to happen. So that's all for me. Thank you guys so much for joining me for this. It's been really fun.
Yeah. So my final thoughts on the video are just like thinking back on it, like the people that I knew growing up who had gone through like instances of like sexual assault or whatever. It was always like, it was either from like family members, which is horrible, and getting rid of sex education will do nothing to prevent, or it was at like frat parties or something, which is horrible, and getting rid of sex education is not going to prevent, or it was at their church from like their youth pastor or something like those. I know lots of people that were sexually assaulted in their childhoods, and it's almost always from those three sources. Like, it's never like, oh yeah, I was taught about gay people when I was 8 years old, and then I read a book about how to masturbate, and now I'm just like a horrible deviant. Like, no, it's like usually people are going through, like, if they have some sort of traumatic experience, like as a kid with like sexual assault, it's almost always in ways that like not only are supported by these people's policies of like trying to stifle out education, like sexual education, and keep kids in the dark and ignorant about these things until it's literally too late and they've been abused by someone that was a trusted authority figure, like their pastor or whatever, like, or a family member. And like, these people are just so dangerous and so harmful to kids and society at large, like from like STDs to child pregnancies, like teenage pregnancies, to like child abuse, like all of the negative externalities that come about from getting rid of sex ed programs. Like, these people are just fostering worse societies, worse outcomes for everybody, especially the kids that they pretend like they're trying to protect because of their holy mission from God or whatever. These people just piss me off.
Yeah, I gotta say, I sort of had my rant and got pretty angry as well. What gets me is just the outright lies. kind of thing, like, oh, they experience worse results getting this sex education. That is patently untrue, and we have the studies to prove it. It's not like we don't have counterfactuals, as AJ pointed out when he brought up the unwanted pregnancies by state. You know, the ones that do not have this have way higher unwanted pregnancies, while the ones that do promote safe sex, they don't have the same problems. And so that counterfactual shows us that these people are actually doing harm by promoting what they're promoting. And what makes me annoyed is it's a call to action to take over the school boards against the best against the best outcomes for their own people. You know, like it's the people that are religious that will probably fare the worst under these rules. Right, because the other parents will go, oh, well, crap, now we've got to get some books, we've got to teach our child about sex, we've got to actually educate them, kind of thing. While the religious ones will just go, pray about it. And so the worst results and the people that they're getting to vote against this stuff are going to be the ones worst hit, that are going to have the teen pregnancies, that are going to have the STDs running rampant. It's going to be horrible. And the fact that they're using some person with absolutely no credentials, I mean, the head thing of that project was Stanford, who's a geneticist. He doesn't have any kind of association with psychology at all. To head up this thing is ridiculous. You know, it really is an appalling program. And I can only hope that they get shut down. But of course, they're being fed into by the creationist organizations, which is being fed into by all the churches. So this is where your donation money is ending up, basically harming children. And so I just, you know, I think that when it comes to this kind of things, we should listen to the people who are experts that have studied it all their lives. But it's the lies that get me, you know, they're teaching this to kids in kindergarten. No, they're not. Like, get out of here. They're not. This book says this. No, it doesn't say that. Like, stop lying, please. But, you know, if you're going to lie about evolution and everything else, you know, you're going to lie about this as well. But yeah, I want to also thank the chat as well, because the comments have been great, and I agree with a ton of them. Thank you so much. It you know, chat's been on point as well.
Absolutely. And I would like to share my screen, but it's loading. But I just made a $10 donation to Planned Parenthood in Eric Hovind's name. So I'll be putting the link in the description if anybody else would like to join in and match my donation. But yeah, I think that's where we're going to sign off. And thank you guys so much for the super chats and everybody watching. This was a really fun stream. So I'll just see you guys in the next video. Thank you, Grayson and Mark, for taking the time.
Thanks so much, AJ.
Yep.
Thank you for watching, liking, and subscribing this video, and I want to give a big thank you to all the channel members whose support allows me to bring you more content like this in the future. Thank you so much, everyone.